The French Revolution, A History. By Thomas Carlyle. 1837. Narrated by Skeptical Waves. Book 1. V. The Third Estate. Chapter 1.5. Inertia. That exasperated France, in this same National Assembly of hers, has got something, nay something great, momentous, indispensable, cannot be doubted, yet still the question were, specially what? A question hard to solve, even for calm onlookers at this distance, wholly insoluble to actors in the middle of it. The States General, created and conflated by the passionate effort of the whole nation, is there as a thing high and lifted up. Hope jubilating, cries aloud that it will prove a miraculous brazen serpent in the wilderness, whereon whosoever looks, with faith and obedience, shall be healed of all woes and serpent bites. We may answer, it will at least prove a symbolic banner, round which the exasperating complaining 25 millions, otherwise isolated and without power, may rally and work what it is in them to work. If battle must be the work, as one cannot help expecting, then shall it be a battle banner, say, an Italian gonfalon, in its old republican Carroccio, and shall tower up, car-borne, shining in the wind, and with iron tongue peal forth many a signal. A thing of prime necessity, which whether in the van or in the center, whether leading or led and driven, must do the fighting multitude incalculable services. For a season, while it floats in the very front, nay as it were stands solitary there, waiting whether force will gather round it, this same national Carroccio, and the signal peals it rings, are a main object with us. The omen of the slouch hats clapped on shows the Commons deputies to have made up their minds on one thing, that neither noblesse nor clergy shall have precedence of them, hardly even majesty itself. To such length has the contra-social, and force of public opinion, carried us. For what is majesty but the delegate of the nation, delegated, and bargained with, even rather tightly, in some very singular posture of affairs, which Jean-Jacques has not fixed the date of? Coming therefore into their hall, on the morrow an inorganic mass of 600 individuals, these Commons deputies perceive, without terror, that they have it all to themselves. Their hall is also the grand or general hall for all the three orders. But the noblesse and clergy, it would seem, have retired to their two separate apartments, or halls, and are there verifying their powers, not in a conjoint but in a separate capacity. They are to constitute two separate, perhaps separately voting orders, then. It is as if both noblesse and clergy had silently taken for granted that they already were such. Two orders against one, and so the third order to be left in a perpetual minority? Much may remain unfixed, but the negative of that is a thing fixed, in the slouch-hatted heads, in the French nation's head. Double representation, and all else hitherto gained, were otherwise futile, Doubtless, the powers must be verified, doubtless, the commission, the electoral documents of your deputy must be inspected by his brother deputies, and found valid. It is the preliminary of all. Neither is this question, of doing it separately or doing it conjointly, a vital one, but if it lead to such, it must be resisted. Wise was that maxim, resist the beginnings. Nay, were resistance unadvisable, even dangerous, yet surely pause is very natural. Pause, with 25 millions behind you, may become resistance enough. The inorganic mass of Commons deputies will restrict itself to a system of inertia, and for the present remain inorganic. Such method, recommendable alike to sagacity and to timidity, do the Commons deputies adopt, and, not without adroitness, and with ever more tenacity, they persist in it, day after day, week after week. For 6 weeks their history is of the kind named barren, which indeed, as philosophy knows, is often the fruitfulest of all. These were their still creation days, wherein they sat incubating. In fact, what they did was to do nothing, in a judicious manner. Daily the inorganic body reassembles, regrets that they cannot get organization, verification of powers in common, and begin regenerating France. Headlong motions may be made, but let such be repressed. Inertia alone is at once unpunishable and unconquerable. Cunning must be met by cunning, proud pretension by inertia, by a low tone of patriotic sorrow, low but incurable, unalterable. Wise as serpents, harmless as doves, what a spectacle for France. 600 inorganic individuals, essential for its regeneration and salvation, sit there, on their elliptic benches, longing passionately towards life, in painful durance, like souls waiting to be born. Speeches are spoken, eloquent, audible within doors and without. Mind agitates itself against mind, the nation looks on with ever deeper interest. Thus do the Commons deputies sit incubating. There are private conclaves, supper parties, consultations, Breton Club, Club of Viroflay, germs of many clubs. Wholly an element of confused noise, dimness, angry heat, wherein, however, the eros egg, kept at the fit temperature, may hover safe, unbroken till it be hatched. In your Mountaires, Malouettes, Le Chapeliers in science sufficient for that, fervor in your Barnavs, Rabots. At times shall come an inspiration from royal Mirabeau, he is no wise yet recognized as royal, nay he was groaned at, when his name was first mentioned, but he is struggling towards recognition. In the course of the week, the Commons having called their eldest to the chair, and furnished him with young stronger lunged assistants, can speak articulately, and, in audible lamentable words, declare, as we said, that they are an inorganic body, longing to become organic. Letters arrive, but an inorganic body cannot open letters, they lie on the table unopened. The eldest may at most procure for himself some kind of list or muster roll, to take the votes by, and wait what will betide. Noblesse and clergy are all elsewhere, however, an eager public crowds all galleries and vacancies, which is some comfort. With effort, it is determined, not that a deputation shall be sent, for how can an inorganic body send deputations? But that certain individual Commons members shall, in an accidental way, stroll into the clergy chamber, and then into the noblesse one, and mention there, as a thing they have happened to observe, that the Commons seem to be sitting waiting for them, in order to verify their powers. That is the wiser method. The clergy, among whom are such a multitude of undignified, of mere commons in curates' frocks, depute instant respectful answer that they are, and will now more than ever be, in deepest study as to that very matter. Contrariwise the noblesse, in cavalier attitude, reply, after 4 days, that they, for their part, are all verified and constituted, which, they had trusted, the commons also were, such separate verification being clearly the proper constitutional wisdom of ancestors' method, as they the noblesse will have much pleasure in demonstrating by a commission of their number, if the commons will meet them, commission against commission. Directly in the rear of which comes a deputation of clergy, reiterating, in their insidious conciliatory way, the same proposal. Here, then, is a complexity. What will wise commons say to this? Warily, inertly, the wise commons, considering that they are, if not a French third estate, at least an aggregate of individuals pretending to some title of that kind, determine, after talking on it 5 days, to name such a commission, though, as it were, with proviso not to be convinced, a 6th day is taken up in naming it, a 7th and an 8th day in getting the forms of meeting, place, hour and the like, settled, so that it is not till the evening of the 23rd of May that Noblesse Commission first meets Commons Commission, clergy acting as conciliators, and begins the impossible task of convincing it. One other meeting, on the 25th, will suffice. The Commons are inconvincible, the noblesse and clergy irrefragably convincing, the commissions retire, each order persisting in its first pretensions. Thus have 3 weeks passed. For 3 weeks, the Third Estate Corocho, with far-seen Gonfalon, has stood stock-still, flouting the wind, waiting what force would gather round it. Fancy can conceive the feeling of the court, and how counsel met counsel, the loud-sounding inanity whirled in the distracted vortex, where wisdom could not dwell. Your cunningly devised taxing machine has been got together, set up with incredible labor, and stands there, its 3 pieces in contact, its 2 flywheels of noblesse and clergy, its huge working wheel of tiers état. The 2 flywheels whirl in the softest manner, but, prodigious to look upon, the huge working wheel hangs motionless, refuses to stir. The cunningest engineers are at fault. How will it work, when it does begin? Fearfully, my friends, and to many purposes, but to gather taxes, or grind court meal, one may apprehend, never. Could we but have continued gathering taxes by hand. Messeigneurs d'Artois, Conde, named court triumvirate, they of the anti-democratic memoir OROI, has not their foreboding proved true. They may wave reproachfully their high heads, they may beat their poor brains, but the cunningest engineers can do nothing. Necker himself, were he even listened to, begins to look blue. The only thing one sees advisable is to bring up soldiers. New regiments, 2, and a battalion of a 3rd, have already reached Paris, others shall get in march. Good were it, in all circumstances, to have troops within reach, good that the command were in sure hands. Let Broglie be appointed, old Marshal Duc de Broglie, veteran disciplinarian, of a firm drill sergeant morality, such as may be depended on. For, alas, neither are the clergy, or the very noblesse what they should be, and might be, when so menaced from without, entire, undivided within. The noblesse, indeed, have their Catiline or Crispin d'Espremenil, dusky glowing, all in renegade heat, their boisterous barrel Mirabeau, but also they have their Lafayettes, Lioncourts, Lameths, above all, their d'Orléans, now cut forever from his court moorings, and musing drowsily of high and highest sea prizes, for is not he too a son of Henri Quatre, and partial potential heir apparent? on his voyage towards chaos. From the clergy again, so numerous are the cures, actual deserters have run over, to small parties, in the second party Courez Grégoire. Nay, there is talk of a whole 149 of them about to desert in mass, and only restrained by an Archbishop of Paris. It seems a losing game. But judge if France, if Paris sat idle, all this while. Addresses from far and near flow in, for our commons have now grown organic enough to open letters. Or indeed to cavil at them. Thus poor Marquis de Brézé, Supreme Usher, Master of Ceremonies, or whatever his title was, writing about this time on some ceremonial matter, sees no harm in winding up with a Monsieur, yours with sincere attachment. To whom does it address itself, this sincere attachment? Inquires Mirabeau. To the Dean of the Tiers État. There is no man in France entitled to write that, rejoins he, whereat the galleries and the world will not be kept from applauding. Poor de Brézé. These commons have a still older grudge at him, nor has he yet done with them. In another way, Mirabeau has had to protest against the quick suppression of his newspaper, Journal of the States General, and to continue it under a new name. In which act of valor, the Paris electors, still busy redacting their quies, could not but support him, by address to His Majesty. They claim utmost provisory freedom of the press, they have spoken even about demolishing the Bastille, and erecting a bronze patriot king on the site. These are the rich burghers, but now consider how it went, for example, with such loose miscellany, now all grown eleutheromaniac, of loungers, prowlers, social nondescripts, and the distilled rascality of our planet, as whirls forever in the Palais Royal, or what low infinite groan, first changing into a growl, comes from Saint-Antoine, and the 25 millions in danger of starvation. There is the indisputablest scarcity of corn, be it aristocrat plot, d'Orléans plot, of this year, or drought and hail of last year, in city and province, the poor man looks desolately towards a nameless lot. And this States General, that could make us an age of gold, is forced to stand motionless, cannot get its powers verified. All industry necessarily languishes, if it be not that of making motions. In the Palais Royal there has been erected, apparently by subscription, a kind of wooden tent, and planches de bois, most convenient, where select patriotism can now redact resolutions, deliver harangues, with comfort, let the weather but as it will. Lively is that Satan at home. On his table, on his chair, in every café, stands a patriotic orator, a crowd round him within, a crowd listening from without, open-mouthed, through open door and window, with thunders of applause for every sentiment of more than common hardiness. In Monsieur Dessaign's pamphlet shop, close by, you cannot without strong elbowing get to the counter, every hour produces its pamphlet, or litter of pamphlets. There were 13 today, 16 yesterday, 9 2 last week. Think of tyranny and scarcity, fervid eloquence, rumor, pamphleteering, société publicole, bread and club, enraged club, and whether every tap room, coffee room, social reunion, accidental street group, over wide France, was not an enraged club. To all which the Commons deputies can only listen with a sublime inertia of sorrow, reduced to busy themselves with their internal police. Surer position no deputies ever occupied, if they keep it with skill. Let not the temperature rise too high, break not the Eros egg till it be hatched, till it break itself. An eager public crowds all galleries and vacancies. Cannot be restrained from applauding. The two privileged orders, the noblesse all verified and constituted, may look on with what face they will, not without a secret tremor of heart. The clergy, always acting the part of conciliators, make a clutch at the galleries, and the popularity there, and miss it. Deputation of them arrives, with dolorous message about the dearth of grains, and the necessity there is of casting aside vain formalities, and deliberating on this. An insidious proposal, which, however, the Commons, moved thereto by Seagreen Robespierre, dexterously accept as a sort of hint, or even pledge, that the clergy will forthwith come over to them, constitute the States General, and so cheapen grains. Finally, on the 27th day of May, Mirabeau, judging the time now nearly come, proposes that the inertia cease, that, leaving the noblesse to their own stiff ways, the clergy be summoned, in the name of the God of peace, to join the Commons and begin. To which summons if they turn a deaf ear, we shall see. Are not 149 of them ready to desert? O triumvirate of princes, nous garde Soberenton, thou Home Secretary Breteuil, Duchess Polignac, and Queen eager to listen, what is now to be done? This third estate will get in motion, with the force of all France in it, clergy machinery with noblesse machinery, which were to serve as beautiful counterbalances and drags, will be shamefully dragged after it, and take fire along with it. What is to be done? The Œil de Bœuf waxes more confused than ever. Whisper and counter-whisper, a very tempest of whispers. Leading men from all the three orders are nightly spirited thither, conjurers many of them, but can they conjure this? Necker himself were now welcome, could he interfere to purpose? Let Necker interfere, then, and in the king's name. Happily that incendiary God of peace message is not yet answered. The three orders shall again have conferences, under this patriot minister of theirs, somewhat may be healed, clouded up, we meanwhile getting forward Swiss regiments, and 100 pieces of field artillery. This is what the Œil de Boeuf, for its part, resolves on. But as for Necker, alas, poor Necker, thy obstinate third estate has one first last word, verification in common, as the pledge of voting and deliberating in common. Halfway proposals, from such a tried friend, they answer with a stare. The tardy conferences speedily break up, the third estate, now ready and resolute, the whole world backing it, returns to its hall of the three orders, and Necker to the Œil de Boeuf, with the character of a disconjured conjurer there, fit only for dismissal. And so the Commons deputies are at last on their own strength getting under way? Instead of chairman, or dean, they have now got a president, astronomer Bailly. Under way, with a vengeance. With endless vociferous and temperate eloquence, borne on newspaper wings to all lands, they have now, on this 17th day of June, determined that their name is not Third Estate, but National Assembly. They, then, are the nation? Triumvirate of princes, queen, refractory noblesse and clergy, what, then, are you? A most deep question, scarcely answerable in living political dialects. All regardless of which, our new National Assembly proceeds to appoint a committee of subsistences, dear to France, though it can find little or no grain. Next, as if our National Assembly stood quite firm on its legs, to appoint 4 other standing committees, then to settle the security of the national debt, then that of the annual taxation, all within 48 hours. At such rate of velocity it is going, the conjurers of the Œil de Boeuf may well ask themselves, whither? Chapter 1.52. Mercury de Brézé. Now surely were the time for a god from the machine, there is a notice worthy of one. The only question is, which god? Shall it be Mars de Broglie, with his 100 pieces of cannon? Not yet, answers Prudence, so soft, irresolute is King Louis. Let it be Messenger Mercury, our supreme usher de Brézé. On the morrow, which is the 20th of June, these 149 false curates, no longer restrainable by his Grace of Paris, will desert in a body, let de Brézé intervene, and produce, closed doors. Not only shall there be royal session, in that salle des menus, but no meeting, nor working, except by carpenters, till then. Your third estate, self-styled National Assembly, shall suddenly see itself extruded from its hall, by carpenters, in this dexterous way, and reduced to do nothing, not even to meet, or articulately lament, Her Majesty, with séance royale and new miracles, be ready. In this manner shall de Brézé, as Mercury ex machina, intervene, and, if the Œil de Boeuf mistake not, work deliverance from the notice. Of poor de Brézé we can remark that he has yet prospered in none of his dealings with these commons. 5 weeks ago, when they kissed the hand of Majesty, the mode he took got nothing but censure, and then his sincere attachment, how was it scornfully whiffed aside? Before supper, this night, he writes to President Bailly, a new letter, to be delivered shortly after dawn tomorrow, in the King's name. Which letter, however, Bailly in the pride of office, will merely crush together into his pocket, like a bill he does not mean to pay. Accordingly on Saturday morning the 20th of June, shrill-sounding heralds proclaim through the streets of Versailles, that there is to be a séance royale next Monday, and no meeting of the States General till then. And yet, we observe, President Bailly in sound of this, and with de Brézé's letter in his pocket, is proceeding, with National Assembly at his heels, to the accustomed salle des menus, as if de Brézé and heralds were mere wind. It is shut, this salle, occupied by Garde Française. Where is your captain? The captain shows his royal order. Workmen, he is grieved to say, are all busy setting up the platform for His Majesty's séance, most unfortunately, no admission, at furthest, for President and Secretaries to bring away papers, which the joiners might destroy. President Bailly enters with secretaries, and returns bearing papers, alas, within doors, instead of patriotic eloquence, there is now no noise but hammering, sawing, and operative screeching and rumbling. A profanation without parallel. The deputies stand grouped on the Paris road, on this umbrageous avenue de Versailles, complaining aloud of the indignity done them. Courtiers, it is supposed, look from their windows and giggle. The morning is none of the comfortablest, raw, it is even drizzling a little. But all travelers pause, patriot gallery men, miscellaneous spectators increase the groups. Wild counsels alternate. Some desperate deputies propose to go and hold session on the great outer staircase at Marly, under the king's windows, for his majesty, it seems, has driven over thither. Others talk of making the chateau forecourt, what they call place d'armes, a Runnymede and new champ de mai of free Frenchmen, nay of awakening, to sounds of indignant patriotism, the echoes of the Œil de Boeuf itself. Notice is given that President Bailly, aided by judicious Guillotin and others, has found place in the tennis court of the Rue Saint-François. Thither, in long-drawn files, horse jingling, like cranes on wing, the Commons deputies angrily wend. Strange sight was this in the Rue Saint-François, view Versailles. A naked tennis court, as the pictures of that time still give it, 4 walls, naked, except aloft some poor wooden penthouse, or roofed spectators' gallery, hanging round them, on the floor not now an idle tee-heeing, a snapping of balls and rackets, but the bellowing din of an indignant national representation, scandalously exiled hither. However, a cloud of witnesses looks down on them, from wooden penthouse, from wall top, from adjoining roof and chimney, rolls towards them from all quarters, with passionate spoken blessings. Some table can be procured to write on, some chair, if not to sit on, then to stand on. The secretaries undo their tapes, Bailly has constituted the assembly. Experienced Mounier, not wholly new to such things, in parliamentary revolts, which he has seen or heard of, thinks that it were well, in these lamentable threatening circumstances, to unite themselves by an oath. Universal acclamation, as from smoldering bosoms getting vent. The oath is redacted, pronounced aloud by President Bailly, and indeed in such a sonorous tone, that the cloud of witnesses, even outdoors, hear it, and bellow response to it. 600 right hands rise with President Bailly's, to take God above to witness that they will not separate from man below, but will meet in all places, under all circumstances, wheresoever 2 or 3 can get together, till they have made the Constitution. Made the Constitution, friends? That is a long task. 600 hands, meanwhile, will sign as they have sworn, 600 save one loyalist Abdiel, still visible by this sole light point, and nameable, poor M. Martin Dodge, from Castelnaudary, in Languedoc. Him they permit to sign or signify refusal, they even save him from the cloud of witnesses, by declaring his head deranged. At 4 o'clock, the signatures are all appended, new meeting is fixed for Monday morning, earlier than the hour of the royal session, that our 149 clerical deserters be not balked. We shall meet at the Recollet Church or elsewhere, in hope that our 149 will join us, and now it is time to go to dinner. This, then, is the session of the tennis court, famed séance du jeu de paume, the fame of which has gone forth to all lands. This is Mercurius de Brézé's appearance as Deus ex machina, this is the fruit it brings. The giggle of courtiers in the Versailles Avenue has already died into gaunt silence. Did the distracted court, with Garde des Soubrerentin, Triumvirate, and company, imagine that they could scatter 600 national deputies, big with a national constitution, like as much barn-door poultry, big with next to nothing, by the white or black rod of a supreme usher? Barn-door poultry fly cackling, but national deputies turn round, lion-faced, and, with uplifted right hand, swear an oath that makes the 4 corners of France tremble. President Bailly has covered himself with honor, which shall become rewards. The National Assembly is now doubly and trebly the nation's assembly, not militant, martyred only, but triumphant, insulted, and which could not be insulted. Paris disembogues itself once more, to witness, with grim looks, the séance royale, which, by a new felicity, is postponed till Tuesday. The 149, and even with bishops among them, all in processional mass, have had free leisure to march off, and solemnly join the Commons sitting waiting in their church. The Commons welcome them with shouts, with embracings, nay with tears, for it is growing a life and death matter now. As for the séance itself, the carpenters seem to have accomplished their platform, but all else remains unaccomplished. Futile, we may say fatal, was the whole matter. King Louis enters, through seas of people, all grim silent, angry with many things, for it is a bitter reign too. Enters, to a third estate, likewise grim silent, which has been wedded waiting under mean porches, at back doors, while court and privileged were entering by the front. King and Garde des Sceaux, there is no necker visible, make known, not without long-windedness, the determinations of the royal breast. The 3 orders shall vote separately. On the other hand, France may look for considerable constitutional blessings, as specified in these 35 articles, which Garde des Sceaux is waxing hoarse with reading. Which 35 articles, adds His Majesty again rising, if the 3 orders most unfortunately cannot agree together to effect them, I myself will effect, Sul je ferai le bien de mes pop, which being interpreted may signify, you, contentious deputies of the States General, have probably not long to be here. But, in fine, all shall now withdraw for this day, and meet again, each order in its separate place, tomorrow morning, for dispatch of business. This is the determination of the royal breast, pithy and clear. And herewith king, retinue, noblesse, majority of clergy file out, as if the whole matter were satisfactorily completed. These file out, through grim silent seas of people. Only to Commons deputies file not out, but stand there in gloomy silence, uncertain what they shall do. One man of them is certain, one man of them discerns and dares. It is now that King Mirabeau starts to the tribune, and lifts up his lion voice. Verily a word in season, for, in such scenes, the moment is the mother of ages. Had not Gabriel Honoré been there, one can well fancy, how the Commons deputies, affrighted at the perils which now yawn dim all round them, and waxing ever paler in each other's paleness, might very naturally, one after one, have glided off, and the whole course of European history have been different. But he is there. List to the brule of that royal forest voice, sorrowful, low, fast swelling to a roar. Eyes kindle at the glance of his eye. National deputies were missioned by a nation, they have sworn an oath, but lo! While the lion's voice roars loudest, what apparition is this? Apparition of Mercurius de Brézé, muttering somewhat. Speak out, cry several. Messieurs, shrills de Brézé, repeating himself, you have heard the king's orders! Mark Mirabeau glares on him with fire-flashing face, shakes the black lion's mane. Yes, monsieur, we have heard what the king was advised to say, and you who cannot be the interpreter of his orders to the States General, you, who have neither place nor right of speech here, you are not the man to remind us of it. Go, monsieur, tell these who sent you that we are here by the will of the people, and that nothing shall send us hence but the force of bayonets. And poor de Brézé shivers forth from the National Assembly, and also, if it be not in one faintest glimmer, months later, finally from the page of history. Hapless de Brézé, doomed to survive long ages, in men's memory, in this faint way, with tremulant white rod. He was true to etiquette, which was his faith here below, a martyr to respect of persons. Short woolen cloaks could not kiss Majesty's hand as long velvet ones did. Nay, lately, when the poor little Dauphin lay dead, and some ceremonial visitation came, was he not punctual to announce it even to the Dauphin's dead body, Monseigneur, a deputation of the States General. Sunt lacrymarum. But what is the Œil de Bœuf, now when de Brézé shivers back thither? Dispatch that same force of bayonets? Not so, the seas of people still hang multitudinous, intent on what is passing, nay rush and roll, loud bellowing, into the courts of the chateau itself, for a report has risen that Necker is to be dismissed. Worst of all, the Garde Française seem indisposed to act, 2 companies of them do not fire when ordered. Necker, for not being at the séance, shall be shouted for, carried home in triumph, and must not be dismissed. His Grace of Paris, on the other hand, has to fly with broken coach panels, and owe his life to furious driving. The Garde du Corps, bodyguards, which you were drawing out, had better be drawn in again. There is no sending of bayonets to be thought of. Instead of soldiers, the Œil de Bœuf sends carpenters to take down the platform. Ineffectual shift. In few instants, the very carpenters cease wrenching and knocking at their platform, stand on it, hammer in hand, and listen open-mouthed. The Third Estate is decreeing that it is, was, and will be, nothing but a National Assembly, and now, moreover, an inviolable one, all members of it inviolable, infamous, traitorous, towards the nation and guilty of capital crime, is any person, body corporate, tribunal, court or commission that now or henceforth, during the present session or after it, shall dare to pursue, interrogate, arrest, or cause to be arrested, detain or cause to be detained, any, ank, on whose part soever the same be commanded. Which done, one can wind up with this comfortable reflection from Abbé Sieyes: Messieurs, you are today what you were yesterday. Courtiers may shriek, but it is, and remains, even so. Their well-charged explosion has exploded through the touch-hole, covering themselves with scorches, confusion, and unseemly soot. Poor triumvirate, poor queen, and above all, poor queen's husband, who means well, had he any fixed meaning. Folly is that wisdom which is wise only behindhand. Few months ago these 35 concessions had filled France with a rejoicing, which might have lasted for several years. Now it is unavailing, the very mention of it slighted, Majesty's express orders said it not. All France is in a roar, a sea of persons, estimated at 10,000, whirls all this day in the Palais Royal. The remaining clergy, and likewise some 48 noblesse, d'Orléans among them, have now forthwith gone over to the victorious Commons, by whom, as is natural, they are received with acclamation. The Third Estate triumphs, Versailles town shouting round it, 10,000 whirling all day in the Palais Royal, and all France standing a tiptoe, not unlike whirling. Let the Œil de Bœuf look to it. As for King Louis, he will swallow his injuries, will temporize, keep silence, will at all costs have present peace. It was Tuesday the 23rd of June, when he spoke that peremptory royal mandate, and the week is not done till he has written to the remaining obstinate noblesse, that they also must oblige him, and give in. D'Espremesnil rages his last, Beryl Mirabeau breaks his sword, making a vow, which he might as well have kept. The triple family is now therefore complete, the third erring brother, the noblesse, having joined it, erring but pardonable, soothed, so far as possible, by sweet eloquence from President Bailly. So triumphs the Third Estate, and States General are become National Assembly, and all France may sing Te Deum. By wise inertia, and wise cessation of inertia, great victory has been gained. It is the last night of June, all night you meet nothing on the streets of Versailles but men running with torches with shouts of jubilation. From the 2nd of May when they kiss the hand of Majesty, to this 30th of June when men run with torches, we count 7 weeks complete. For 7 weeks the national Corocho has stood far seen, ringing many a signal, and, so much having now gathered round it, may hope to stand. Chapter 1.53 Broglie the War God. The court feels indignant that it is conquered, but what then? Another time it will do better. Mercury descended in vain, now has the time come for Mars. The gods of the Œil de Bœuf have withdrawn into the darkness of their cloudy Ida, and sit there, shaping and forging what may be needful, be it billets of a new national bank, munitions of war, or things forever inscrutable to men. Accordingly, what means this apparatus of troops? The National Assembly can get no furtherance for its Committee of Subsistences, can hear only that, at Paris, the bakers' shops are besieged, that, in the provinces, people are living on meal husks and boiled grass. But on all highways there hover dust clouds, with the march of regiments, with the trailing of cannon, foreign panders, a fierce aspect, Salis-Samade, Esterhazy, Royal Allemand, so many of them foreign, to the number of 30,000, which fear can magnify to 50, all wending towards Paris and Versailles. Already, on the heights of Montmartre, is a digging and delving, too like a scarping and trenching. The effluence of Paris is arrested Versailles ward by a barrier of cannon at Sèvres Bridge. From the Queen's Mews, cannon stand pointed on the National Assembly Hall itself. The National Assembly has its very slumbers broken by the tramp of soldiery, swarming and defiling, endless, or seemingly endless, all round those spaces, at dead of night, without drum music, without audible word of command. What means it? Shall 8, or even shall 12 deputies, our Mirabeaus, Barnevs at the head of them, be whirled suddenly to the castle of Ham, the rest ignominiously dispersed to the winds? No National Assembly can make the Constitution with cannon levelled on it from the Queen's Mews. What means this reticence of the Œil de Bœuf, broken only by nods and shrugs? In the mystery of that cloudy Ida, what is it that they forge and shape? Such questions must distracted patriotism keep asking, and receive no answer but an echo. Enough of themselves. But now, above all, while the hungry food year, which runs from August to August, is getting older, becoming more and more a famine year. With meal husks and boiled grass, brigands may actually collect, and, in crowds, at farm and mansion, howl angrily, food. Food. It is in vain to send soldiers against them, at sight of soldiers they disperse, they vanish as underground, then directly reassemble elsewhere for new tumult and plunder. Frightful enough to look upon, but what to hear of, reverberated through 25 millions of suspicious minds. Brigands and Broglie, open conflagration, preternatural rumor are driving mad most hearts in France. What will the issue of these things be? At Marseille, many weeks ago, the townsmen have taken arms. For suppressing of brigands and other purposes, the military commandant may make of it what he will. Elsewhere, everywhere, could not the like be done? Dubious, on the distracted patriot imagination, wavers, as a last deliverance, some foreshadow of a national guard. But conceive, above all, the wooden tent in the Palais Royal. A universal hubbub there, as of dissolving worlds, their loudest bellows the mad-making voice of rumor, their sharpest gazes suspicion into the pale dim world whirlpool, discerning shapes and phantasms, imminent bloodthirsty regiments camped on the Champ de Mars, dispersed National Assembly, red-hot cannonballs, to burn Paris, the mad war god and Bellona sounding thongs. To the calmest man it is becoming too plain that battle is inevitable. Inevitable, silently nod Messeigneurs and Broglie, inevitable and brief. Your National Assembly, stopped short in its constitutional labors, may fatigue the royal ear with addresses and remonstrances, those cannon of ours stand duly levelled, those troops are here. The King's Declaration, with its 35 too generous articles, was spoken, was not listened to, but remains yet unrevoked, he himself shall effect it, Soleil Fera. As for Broglie, he has his headquarters at Versailles, All is in a seat of war, clerks writing, significant staff officers, inclined to taciturnity, plumed aide-de-camp, scouts, orderlies flying or hovering. He himself looks forth, important, impenetrable, listens to Besenval commandant of Paris, and his warning and earnest counsels, for he has come out repeatedly on purpose, with a silent smile. The Parisians resist? Scornfully cry Messeiners. As a meal mob may. They have sat quiet, these 5 generations, submitting to all. Their Mercier declared, in these very years, that a Parisian revolt was henceforth impossible. Stand by the royal declaration, of the 23rd of June. The nobles of France, valorous, chivalrous as of old, will rally round us with one heart, and as for this which you call Third Estate, and which we call canaille of unwashed sansculottes, of patellans, scribblers, factious spouters, brave broglie, with a whiff of grapeshot, salve de cannons, if need be, will give quick account of it. Thus reason they, on their cloudy Ida, hidden from men, men also hidden from them. Good as grapeshot, Messeiners, on one condition, that the shooter also were made of metal. But unfortunately he is made of flesh. Under his buffs and bandoliers your hired shooter has instincts, feelings, even a kind of thought. It is his kindred, bone of his bone, this same canaille that shall be whiffed. He has brothers in it, a father and mother, living on meal husks and boiled grass. His very doxy, not yet dead I the spittle, drives him into military heterodoxy, declares that if he shed patriot blood, he shall be accursed among men. The soldier, who has seen his pay stolen by rapacious Falons, his blood wasted by Soubaises, Pompadours, and the gates of promotion shut inexorably on him if he were not born noble, is himself not without griefs against you. Your cause is not the soldier's cause, but, as would seem, your own only, and no other god's nor man's. For example, the world may have heard how, at Béthune lately, when there rose some riot about grains, of which sort there are so many, and the soldiers stood drawn out, and the word fire was given, not a trigger stirred, only the butts of all muskets rattled angrily against the ground, and the soldiers stood glooming, with a mixed expression of countenance, till clutched each under the arm of a patriot householder, they were all hurried off, in this manner, to be treated and caressed, and have their pay increased by subscription. Neither have the Garde Française, the best regiment of the line, shown any promptitude for street firing lately. They returned grumbling from réveillons, and have not burned a single cartridge since, nay, as we saw, not even when bid. A dangerous humor dwells in these Garda. Notable men too, in their way. Valady the Pythagorean was, at one time, an officer of theirs. Nay, in the ranks, under the 3-cornered felt and cockade, what hard heads may there not be, and reflections going on, unknown to the public. One head of the hardest we do now discern there, on the shoulders of a certain Sergeant Hoche. Lazare Hoche, that is the name of him. He used to be about the Versailles royal stables, nephew of a poor herbwoman, a handy lad, exceedingly addicted to reading. He is now Sergeant Hoche, and can rise no farther. He lays out his pay in rushlights, and cheap editions of books. On the whole, the best seems to be, consign these Garde Françaises to their barracks. So Besenval thinks, and orders. Consigned to their barracks, the Garde Françaises do but form a secret association, an engagement not to act against the National Assembly. Debauched by Valady the Pythagorean, debauched by money and women. Cry Besenval and innumerable others. Debauched by what you will, or in need of no debauching, behold them, long files of them, their consignment broken, arrive, headed by their sergeants, on the 26th day of June, at the Palais Royal. Welcomed with vivats, with presents, and a pledge of patriot liquor, embracing and embraced, declaring in words that the cause of France is their cause. Next day and the following days the like. What is singular too, except this patriot humor, and breaking of their consignment, they behave otherwise with the most rigorous accuracy. They are growing questionable, these Garda. 11 ringleaders of them are put in the Abbaye prison. It boots not in the least. The imprisoned 11 have only, by the hand of an individual, to drop, towards nightfall, a line in the Café de Foy, where patriotism harangues loudest on its table. 200 young persons, soon waxing to 4,000, with thick crowbars, roll towards the Abbaye, smite asunder the needful doors, and bear out their 11, with other military victims, to supper in the Palais Royal Garden, to board and lodging in cambeds, in the Théâtre des Variétés, other national prytaneum as yet not being in readiness. Most deliberate. Nay, so punctual were these young persons, that finding one military victim to have been imprisoned for real civil crime, they returned him to his cell, with protest. Why new military force was not called out? New military force was called out. New military force did arrive, full gallop, with drawn saber, but the people gently laid hold of their bridles, the dragoons sheathed their swords, lifted their caps by way of salute, and sat like mere statues of dragoons, except indeed that a drop of liquor being brought them, they drank to the king and nation with the greatest cordiality. And now, ask in return, why Messeiners and Broglie the great god of war, on seeing these things, did not pause, and take some other course, any other course? Unhappily, as we said, they could see nothing. Pride, which goes before a fall, wrath, if not reasonable, yet pardonable, most natural, had hardened their hearts and heated their heads, so, with imbecility and violence, ill-matched pair, they rushed to seek their hour. All regiments are not garde française, or debauched by Valady the Pythagorean, let fresh undebauched regiments come up, let Royal Allemand Salé Samade, Swiss Chateau Vieux come up, which can fight, but can hardly speak except in German gutturals, let soldiers march, and highways thunder with artillery wagons, Majesty has a new royal session to hold, and miracles to work there. The whiff of grapeshot can, if needful, become a blast and tempest. In which circumstances, before the red-hot balls begin raining, may not the 120 Paris electors, though their quae is long since finished, see good to meet again daily, as an electoral club? They meet first in a tavern, where the largest wedding party cheerfully give place to them. But latterly they meet in the Hôtel de Ville and the town hall itself. Flessels, provost of merchants, with his 4 echevins, scabins, assessors, could not prevent it, such was the force of public opinion. He, with his echevins, and the 26 town councillors, all appointed from above, may well sit silent there, in their long gowns, and consider, with awed eye, what prelude this is of convulsion coming from below, and how themselves shall fare in that. Chapter 1.54. To Arms. So hangs it, dubious, fateful, and the sultry days of July. It is the passionate printed advice of Murat, to abstain, of all things, from violence. Nevertheless the hungry poor are already burning town barriers, where tribute on eatables is levied, getting clamorous for food. The 12th July morning is Sunday, the streets are all placarded with an enormous size de par la roi, inviting peaceable citizens to remain within doors, to feel no alarm, to gather in no crowd. Why so? What mean these placards of enormous size? Above all, what means this clatter of military, dragoons, hussars, rattling in from all points of the compass towards the place Louis XV, with a staid gravity of face, though saluted with mere nicknames, hootings and even missiles? Besenval is with them. Swiss guards of his are already in the Champs-Élysées, with 4 pieces of artillery. Have the destroyers descended on us, then? From the bridge of Sèvres to utmost Vincennes, from Saint-Denis to the Champ de Mars, we are begirt. Alarm, of the vague unknown, is in every heart. The Palais Royal has become a place of awestruck interjections, silent shakings of the head. One can fancy with what dolorous sound the noontide cannon, which the sun fires at the crossing of his meridian, went off there, vowed full, like an inarticulate voice of doom. Are these troops verily come out against brigands? Where are the brigands? What mystery is in the wind? Hark! A human voice reporting articulately the job's news. Necker, People's Minister, Saviour of France, is dismissed. Impossible, incredible. Treasonous to the public peace. Such a voice ought to be choked in the waterworks, had not the newsbringer quickly fled. Nevertheless, friends, make of it what you will, the news is true. Necker is gone. Necker hies northward incessantly, in obedient secrecy, since yesternight. We have a new ministry, Broglie the war god, aristocrat Breteuil, Foulon who said the people might eat grass. Rumor, therefore, shall arise, in the Palais Royal, and in broad France. Paleness sits on every face, confused tremor and freemessence, waxing into thunder peals, of fury stirred on by fear. But see Camille Desmoulins, from the Café de Foy, rushing out, sibylline in face, his hair streaming, in each hand a pistol. He springs to a table, the police satellites are eyeing him, alive they shall not take him, not they alive him alive. This time he speaks without stammering, friends, shall we die like hunted hares? Like sheep hounded into their pinfold, bleeding for mercy, where is no mercy, but only a whetted knife? The hour has come, the supreme hour of Frenchman and man, when oppressors are to try conclusions with oppressed, and the word is, swift death, or deliverance forever. Let such hour be welcome. Us, meseems, one cry only befits, to arms. Let universal Paris, universal France, as with the throat of the whirlwind, sound only, to arms. To arms. Yell responsive the innumerable voices, like one great voice, as of a demon yelling from the air, for all faces wax fire-eyed, all hearts burn up into madness. In such, or fitter words, does Camille evoke the elemental powers, in this great moment. Friends, continues Camille, some rallying sign. Cockades, green ones, the color of hope. As with the flight of locusts, these green tree leaves, green ribbons from the neighboring shops, all green things are snatched, and made cockades of. Camille descends from his table, stifled with embraces, wetted with tears, has a bit of green ribbon handed him, sticks it in his hat. And now to Curtius' image shop there, to the boulevards, to the four winds, and rest not till France be on fire. France, so long shaken and wind-parched, is probably at the right inflammable point. As for poor Curtius, who, one grieves to think, might be but imperfectly paid, he cannot make two words about his images. The wax bust of Necker, the wax bust of d'Orléans, helpers of France, these, covered with crape, as in funeral procession, or after the manner of suppliants appealing to heaven, to earth, and Tartarus itself, a mixed multitude bears off. For a sign. As indeed man, with his singular imaginative faculties, can do little or nothing without signs, thus Turks look to their prophet's banner. Also osier mannequins have been burnt, and Necker's portrait has erewhile figured, aloft on its perch. In this manner march they, a mixed, continually increasing multitude, armed with axes, staves and miscellanea, grim, many sounding, through the streets. Be all theatres shut, let all dancing, on planked floor, or on the natural greensward, cease. Instead of a Christian Sabbath, and feast of Ganget tabernacles, it shall be a sorcerer's Sabbath, and Paris, gone rabid, dance, with the fiend for piper. However, Besenval, with horse and foot, is in the place Louis XV. Mortals promenading homewards, in the fall of the day, saunter by, from Chaillot or Passy, from flirtation and a little thin wine, with sadder step than usual. Will the bust procession pass that way? Behold it, behold also Prince Lambesc dash forth on it, with his royal Almo. Shots fall, and sabre strokes, busts are hewn asunder, and, alas, also heads of men. A sabred procession has nothing for it but to explode, along what streets, alleys, Tuileries avenues it finds, and disappear. One unarmed man lies hewed down, a guard français by his uniform, bear him, or bear even the report of him, dead and gory to his barracks, where he has comrades still alive. But why not now, victorious Lambesc, charge through that Tuileries garden itself, where the fugitives are vanishing? Not show the Sunday promenaders too, how steel glitters, besprent with blood, that it be told of, and men's ears tingle? Tingle, alas, they did, but the wrong way. Victorious Lambesc, in this his second or Tuileries charge, succeeds but in overturning, call it not slashing, for he struck with the flat of his sword, one man, a poor old schoolmaster, most pacifically tottering there, and is driven out, by barricade of chairs, by flights of bottles and glasses, by execrations in bass voice and treble. Most delicate is the mob queller's vocation, wherein too much may be as bad as not enough. For each of these bass voices, and more each treble voice, borne to all points of the city, rings now nothing but distracted indignation, will ring all another. The cry, to arms, roars tenfold, steeples with their metal storm voice boom out, as the sun sinks, armorers' shops are broken open, plundered, the streets are a living foam sea, chafed by all the winds. Such issue came of Lambesque's charge on the Tuileries garden, no striking of salutary terror into Chaillot promenaders, a striking into broad wakefulness of frenzy and the three furies, which otherwise were not asleep. For they lie always, those subterranean humanities, fabulous and yet so true, in the dullest existence of man, and can dance, brandishing their dusky torches, shaking their serpent hair. Lambesc with royal Allemand may ride to his barracks, with curses for his marching music, then ride back again, like one troubled in mind, vengeful garde française, sacréing, with knit brows, start out on him, from their barracks in the Chaus d'Anton, pour a volley into him, killing and wounding, which he must not answer, but ride on. Counsel dwells not under the plumed hat. If the humanities awaken, and Broglie has given no orders, what can a Besenval do? When the Garde Française, with Palais Royal volunteers, roll down, greedy of more vengeance, to the place Louis XV itself, they find neither Besenval, Lambesc, Royal Allemand, nor any soldier now there. Gone is military order. On the far eastern boulevard of Saint-Antoine, the chasseurs Normandy arrive, dusty, thirsty, after a hard day's ride, but can find no billet master, see no course in this city of confusions, cannot get to Besenval, cannot so much as discover where he is. Normandy must even bivouac there, in its dust and thirst, unless some patriot will treat it to a cup of liquor, with advices. Raging multitudes surround the Hôtel de Ville, crying, arms. Orders. The 26 town councillors, with their long gowns, have ducked under, into the raging chaos, shall never emerge more. Besenval is painfully wriggling himself out, to the Champ de Mars, He must sit there in the cruelest uncertainty. Courier after courier may dash off for Versailles, but will bring back no answer, can hardly bring himself back. For the roads are all blocked with batteries and pickets, with floods of carriages arrested for examination. Such was Broglie's one sole order, the Œil de Bœuf, hearing in the distance such mad din, which sounded almost like invasion, will before all things keep its own head whole. A new ministry, with, as it were, but one foot in the stirrup, cannot take leaps. Mad Paris is abandoned altogether to itself. What a Paris, when the darkness fell! A European metropolitan city hurled suddenly forth from its old combinations and arrangements, to crash tumultuously together, seeking new. Use and want will now no longer direct any man. Each man, with what of originality he has, must begin thinking, or following those that think. 700,000 individuals, on the sudden, find all their old paths, old ways of acting and deciding, vanish from under their feet. And so there go they, with clangor and terror, they know not as yet whether running, swimming or flying, headlong into the new era. With clangor and terror, from above, Broglie the war god impends, preternatural, with his red-hot cannonballs, and from below, a preternatural brigand world menaces with dirk and firebrand. Madness rules the hour. Happily, in place of the submerged 26, the Electoral Club is gathering, has declared itself a provisional municipality. On the morrow it will get Provost Flessels, with an echevin or two, to give help in many things. For the present it decrees one most essential thing, that forthwith a Parisian militia shall be enrolled. Depart, ye heads of districts, to labor in this great work, while we here, in permanent committee, sit alert. Let fencible men, each party in its own range of streets, keep watch and ward, all night. Let Paris court a little fever sleep, confused by such fever dreams, of violent motions at the Palais Royal, or from time to time start awake, and look out, palpitating, in its nightcap, at the clash of discordant mutually unintelligible patrols, on the gleam of distant barriers, going up all too ruddy towards the vault of night. Chapter 1.5.v. Give us arms. On Monday the huge city has awoke, not to its weekday industry, to what a different one. The working man has become a fighting man, has one only, that of arms. The industry of all crafts has paused, except it be the smiths, fiercely hammering pikes, and, in a faint degree, the kitcheners, cooking off-hand victuals, for bourgeois toujours. Women too are sewing cockades, not now of green, which being d'Artois color, the Hôtel de Ville has had to interfere in it, but of red and blue, our old Paris colors. These, once based on a ground of constitutional white, are the famed tricolor, which, if prophecy or not, will go round the world. All shops, unless it be the bakers and vintners, are shut. Paris is in the streets, rushing, foaming like some Venice wineglass into which you had dropped poison. The tocsin, by order, is pealing madly from all steeples. Arms, ye elector municipals, thou Flessels with thy echevins, give us arms. Flessels gives what he can, fallacious, perhaps insidious promises of arms from Charleville, order to seek arms here, order to seek them there. The new municipals give what they can, some 360 indifferent firelocks, the equipment of the city watch, a man in wooden shoes, and without coat, directly clutches one of them and mounts guard. Also is hinted, an order to all smiths to make pikes with their whole soul. Heads of districts are in fervent consultation, subordinate patriotism roams distracted, ravenous for arms. Hitherto at the Hôtel de Ville was only such modicum of indifferent firelocks as we have seen. At the so-called arsenal, there lies nothing but rust, rubbish and saltpeter, overlooked too by the guns of the Bastille. His Majesty's repository, what they call garde meuble, is forced and ransacked, tapestries enough, and gauderies, but of serviceable fighting gear small stock. 2 silver-mounted cannons there are, an ancient gift from His Majesty of Siam to Louis XIV, gilt sword of the good Henri, antique chivalry arms and armor. These, and such as these, a necessitous patriotism snatches greedily, for want of better. The Siamese cannons go trundling, on an errand they were not meant for. Among the indifferent firelocks are seen tourney lances, the princely helm and hauberk glittering amid ill-hatted heads, as in a time when all times and their possessions are suddenly sent jumbling. At the Maison de Saint-Lazare, Lazare House once, now a correction house with priests, there was no trace of arms, but, on the other hand, corn, plainly to a culpable extent. Out with it, to market, in this scarcity of grains. Heavens, will 52 carts, in long row, hardly carry it to the Hallie-Bleds? Well, truly, ye reverend fathers, was your pantry filled, fat are your larders, over-generous your wine-bins, ye plotting exasperators of the poor, traitorous forestallers of bread. Vain is protesting, entreaty on bare knees, the house of St. Lazarus has that in it which comes not out by protesting. Behold, how, from every window, it vomits, mere torrents of furniture, of bellowing and hurly-burly, the cellars also leaking wine. Till, as was natural, smoke rose, kindled, some say, by the desperate St. Lazarus themselves, desperate of other riddance, and the establishment vanished from this world in flame. Remark nevertheless that a thief, set on or not by aristocrats, being detected there, is instantly hanged. Look also at the Châtelet prison. The debtors' prison of law force is broken from without, and they that sat in bondage to aristocrats go free, hearing of which the felons at the Châtelet do likewise dig up their pavements, and stand on the offensive, with the best prospects, had not patriotism, passing that way, fired a volley into the felon world, and crushed it down again under hatches. Patriotism consorts not with thieving and felony, surely also punishment, this day hitches, if she still hitch, after crime, with frightful shoes of swiftness. Some score or two of wretched persons, found prostrate with drink in the cellars of that Saint Lazare, are indignantly haled to prison. The jailer has no room, whereupon, other place of security not suggesting itself, it is written, on lay pendant, they hang them. Brief is the word, not without significance, be it true or untrue. In such circumstances, the aristocrat, the unpatriotic rich man is packing up for departure. But he shall not get departed. A wooden shod force has seized all barriers, burnt or not, all that enters, all that seeks to issue, is stopped there, and dragged to the Hôtel de Ville, coaches, tumbrils, plate, furniture, many meal sacks, in time even flocks and herds encumber the place de grève. And so it roars, and rages, and brays, drums beating, steeples pealing, criers rushing with handbells, oh yea, oh yea. All men to their districts to be enrolled. The districts have met in gardens, open squares, are getting marshalled into volunteer troops. No red-hot ball has yet fallen from Besenval's camp, on the contrary deserters with their arms are continually dropping in, nay now, joy of joys, at 2 in the afternoon, the Garde Française, being ordered to Saint-Denis and flatly declining, have come over in a body. It is a fact worth many. 3,600 of the best fighting men, with complete accoutrement, with cannoneers even, and cannon. Their officers are left standing alone, could not so much as succeed in spiking the guns. The very Swiss, it may now be hoped, Chateauvieux and the others, will have doubts about fighting. Our Parisian militia, which some think it were better to name National Guard, is prospering as heart could wish. It promised to be 48,000, but will in few hours double and quadruple that number, invincible, if we had only arms. But see, the promised Charleville boxes, marked artillery. Here, then, are arms enough? Conceive the blank face of patriotism, when it found them filled with rags, foul linen, candle ends, and bits of wood. Provost of the merchants, how is this? Neither at the Chartreux convent, whither we were sent with signed order, is there or ever was there any weapon of war. Nay here, in this same boat, safe under tarpaulings, had not the nose of patriotism been of the finest, our 5,000 weight of gunpowder, not coming in, but surreptitiously going out. What meanest thou, Flessels? 'Tis a ticklish game, that of amusing us. Cat plays with captive mouse, but mouse with enraged cat, with enraged national tiger? Meanwhile, the faster, O ye black apron smiths, smite, with strong arm and willing heart. This man and that, all stroke from head to heel, shall thunder alternating, and ply the great forge hammer, till stithy reel and ring again, while ever and anon, overhead, booms the alarm cannon, for the city has now got gunpowder. Pikes are fabricated, 50,000 of them, in 36 hours, judge whether the black apron have been idle. Dig trenches, unpave the streets, ye others, assiduous, man and maid, cram the earth in barrel barricades, at each of them a volunteer sentry, pile the windstones in windowsills and upper rooms. Have scalding pitch, at least boiling water ready, ye weak old women, to pour it and dash it on royal Allemande, with your old skinny arms, your shrill curses along with it will not be wanting. Patrols of the newborn National Guard, bearing torches, scour the streets, all that night, which otherwise are vacant, yet illuminated in every window by order. Strange looking, like some naphtha-lighted city of the dead, with here and there a flight of perturbed ghosts. O poor mortals, how ye make this earth bitter for each other, this fearful and wonderful life fearful and horrible, and Satan has his place in all hearts. Such agonies and ragings and wailings ye have, and have had, in all times, to be buried all, in so deep silence, and the salt sea is not swollen with your tears. Great meanwhile is the moment, when tidings of freedom reach us, when the long enthralled soul, from amid its chains and squalid stagnancy, arises, were it still only in blindness and bewilderment, and swears by him that made it, that it will be free. Free? Understand that well, it is the deep commandment, nimmer or clearer, of our whole being, to be free. Freedom is the one purport, wisely aimed at, or unwisely, of all man's struggles, toilings and sufferings, in this earth. Yes, supreme is such a moment, if thou have known it, first vision as of a flame-girt Sinai, in this our waste pilgrimage, which thenceforth wants not its pillar of cloud by day, and pillar of fire by night. Something it is even, nay, something considerable, when the chains have grown corrosive, poisonous, to be free from oppression by our fellow man. Forward, ye maddened sons of France, be it towards this destiny or towards that. Around you is but starvation, falsehood, corruption and the clam of death. Where ye are is no abiding. Imagination may, imperfectly, figure how Commandant Busenval, in the Champ de Mars, has worn out these sorrowful hours insurrection all round, his men melting away. From Versailles, to the most pressing messages, comes no answer, or once only some vague word of answer which is worse than none. A council of officers can decide merely that there is no decision, colonels inform him, weeping, that they do not think their men will fight. Cruel uncertainty is here, war god Broglie sits yonder, inaccessible in his Olympus, does not descend terror-clad, does not produce his whiff of grapeshot, sends no orders. Truly, in the chateau of Versailles all seems mystery, in the town of Versailles, were we there, all is rumor, alarm and indignation. An august National Assembly sits, to appearance, menaced with death, endeavoring to defy death. It has resolved that Necker carries with him the regrets of the nation. It has sent solemn deputation over to the chateau, with entreaty to have these troops withdrawn. In vain, His Majesty, with a singular composure, invites us to be busy rather with our own duty, making the Constitution. Foreign panders, and such like, go pricking and prancing, with a swashbuckler air, with an eye too probably to the salle des menus, were it not for the grim-looking countenances that crowd all avenues there. Be firm, ye national senators, the cynosure of a firm, grim-looking people. The august national senators determine that there shall, at least, be permanent session till this thing end. Wherein, however, consider that worthy Lafranc de Pompignan, our new president, whom we have named by his successor, is an old man, wearied with many things. He is the brother of that Pompignan who meditated lamentably on the Book of Lamentations. Savez-vous pourquoi Jérémie s'est lamenté toute sa vie? C'est qu'il prévoyait que Pompignan le traduirait. Poor Bishop Pompignan withdraws, having got Lafayette for helper or substitute. This latter, as nocturnal vice-president, with a thin house in disconsolate humor, sits sleepless, with lights unsnuffed, waiting what the hours will bring. So at Versailles. But at Paris, agitated Busenval, before retiring for the night, has stepped over to old M. de Sombreuil, of the Hôtel des Invalides hard by. M. de Sombreuil has, what is a great secret, some 28,000 stand of muskets deposited in his cellars there, but no trust in the temper of his Invalides. This day, for example, he sent 20 of the fellows down to unscrew those muskets, lest sedition might snatch at them, but scarcely, in 6 hours, had the 20 unscrewed 20 gun locks, or dogs' heads, chion, of locks, each invalide his dog's head. If ordered to fire, they would, he imagines, turn their cannon against himself. Unfortunate old military gentleman, it is your hour, not of glory. Old Marquis de Launay too, of the Bastille, has pulled up his drawbridges long since, and retired into his interior, with sentries walking on his battlements, under the midnight sky, aloft over the glare of illuminated Paris, whom a national patrol, passing that way, takes the liberty of firing at 7 shots towards 12 at night, which do not take effect. This was the 13th day of July, 1789, a worse day, many said, than the last 13th was, when only hail fell out of heaven, not madness rose out of Topet, ruining worse than crops. In these same days, as chronology will teach us, hot old Marquis Mirabeau lies stricken down, at Argenteuil, not within sound of these alarm guns, for he properly is not there, and only the body of him now lies, deaf and cold forever. It was on Saturday night that he, drawing his last life breaths, gave up the ghost there, leaving a world, which would never go to his mind, now broken out, seemingly, into deliration and the culbute générale. What is it to him, departing elsewhither, on his long journey? The old Chateau Mirabeau stands silent, far off, on its scarped rock, in that gorge of 2 windy valleys, the pale fading spectre now of a chateau. This huge world riot, and France, and the world itself, fades also, like a shadow on the great still mirror sea, and all shall be as God wills. Young Mirabeau, sad of heart, for he loved this crabbed brave old father, sad of heart, and occupied with sad cares, is withdrawn from public history. The great crisis transacts itself without him. Chapter 1.5.Vi. Storm and Victory. But, To the living and the struggling, a new, 14th morning dawns. Under all roofs of this distracted city, is the notice of a drama, not untragical, crowding towards solution. The bustlings and preparings, the tremors and menaces, the tears that fell from old eyes. This day, my sons, ye shall quit you like men. By the memory of your father's wrongs, by the hope of your children's rights. Tyranny impends in red wrath, help for you is none if not in your own right hands. This day ye must do or die. From earliest light, a sleepless permanent committee has heard the old cry, now waxing almost frantic, mutinous, arms. Arms. Provost Flessels, or what traitors there are among you, may think of those Charleville boxes. 150,000 of us, and but the third man furnished with so much as a pike. Arms are the one thing needful, with arms we are an unconquerable man-defying National Guard, without arms, a rabble to be whiffed with grapeshot. Happily the word has arisen, for no secret can be kept, that there lie muskets at the Hôtel des Invalides. Thither will we, King's Procureur M. Ethys de Corny, and whatsoever of authority a permanent committee can lend, shall go with us. Besenval's camp is there, perhaps he will not fire on us, if he kill us we shall but die. Alas, poor Besenval, with his troops melting away in that manner, has not the smallest humor to fire. At 5 o'clock this morning, as he lay dreaming, oblivious in the École Militaire, a figure stood suddenly at his bedside, with face rather handsome, eyes inflamed, speech rapid and curt, air audacious. Such a figure drew Priam's curtains. The message and monition of the figure was, that resistance would be hopeless, that if blood flowed, woe to him who shed it. Thus spoke the figure, and vanished. Withal there was a kind of eloquence that struck one. Besenval admits that he should have arrested him, but did not. Who this figure, with inflamed eyes, with speech rapid and curt, might be? Besenval knows but mentions not. Camille Desmoulins? Pythagorean Marquis Valady, inflamed with violent motions all night at the Palais Royal? Fame names him, young M. Mailer, then shuts her lips about him forever. In any case, behold about 9 in the morning, our national volunteers rolling in long wide flood, southwestward to the Hôtel des Invalides, in search of the one thing needful. King's Procureur M. Ethys de Corny and officials are there, the Curé of Saint-Étienne-du-Mont marches unpacific, at the head of his militant parish, the clerks of the Bazoche in red coats we see marching, now volunteers of the Bazoche, the volunteers of the Palais Royal, national volunteers, numerable by tens of thousands, of one heart and mind. The king's muskets are the nation's. Think, old M. De Sombreuil, how, in this extremity, thou wilt refuse them. Old M. De Sombreuil would fain hold parley, send couriers, but it skills not, the walls are scaled, no Invalides firing a shot, the gates must be flung open. Patriotism rushes in, tumultuous, from Grunsel up to Ridge Tile, through all rooms and passages, rummaging distractedly for arms. What cellar or what cranny can escape it? The arms are found, all safe there, lying packed in straw, apparently with a view to being burnt. More ravenous than famishing lions over dead prey, the multitude, with clangor and vociferation, pounces on them, struggling, dashing, clutching, to the jamming up, to the pressure, fracture and probable extinction, of the weaker patriot. And so, with such protracted crash of deafening, most discordant orchestra music, the scene is changed, and 8 and 20,000 sufficient firelocks are on the shoulders of so many National Guards, lifted thereby out of darkness into fiery light. Let Besenval look at the glitter of these muskets, as they flash by. Garde Française, it is said, have cannon leveled on him, ready to open, if need were, from the other side of the river. Motionless sits he, astonished, one may flatter oneself, at the proud bearing, fier countenance, of the Parisians. And now, to the Bastille, ye intrepid Parisians. Their grapeshot still threatens, thither all men's thoughts and steps are now tending. Old Delaunay, as we hinted, withdrew into his interior soon after midnight of Sunday. He remains there ever since, hampered, as all military gentlemen now are, in the saddest conflict of uncertainties. The Hôtel de Ville invites him to admit national soldiers, which is a soft name for surrendering. On the other hand, His Majesty's orders were precise. His garrison is but 82 old Invalides, reinforced by 32 young Swiss. His walls indeed are 9 feet thick, he has cannon and powder, but, alas, only 1 day's provision of victuals. The city too is French, the poor garrison mostly French. Rigorous old Delaunay, think what thou wilt do. All morning, since 9, there has been a cry everywhere, to the Bastille. Repeated deputations of citizens have been here, passionate for arms, whom Delaunay has got dismissed by soft speeches through portholes. Towards noon, Elector Thuriot de la Rosière gains admittance, finds Delaunay indisposed for surrender, nay disposed for blowing up the place rather. Thuriot mounts with him to the battlements, heaps of paving stones, old iron and missiles lie piled, cannon all duly levelled, in every embrasure a cannon, only drawn back a little. But outwards behold, O Thuriot, how the multitude flows on, welling through every street, tocsin furiously pealing, all drums beating the général, the suburb Saint-Antoine rolling hitherward wholly, as one man. Such vision, spectral yet real, thou, O Thuriot, as from thy mount of vision, beholdest in this moment, prophetic of what other phantasmagories, and loud gibbering spectral realities, which, thou yet beholdest not, but shalt. Que voulez-vous? Said Delaunay, turning pale at the sight, with an air of reproach, almost of menace. Monsieur, said Thuriot, rising into the moral sublime, what mean you? Consider if I could not precipitate both of us from this height, say only 100 feet, exclusive of the walled ditch. Whereupon Delaunay fell silent. Thuriot shows himself from some pinnacle, to comfort the multitude becoming suspicious, freemason, then descends, departs with protest, with warning addressed also to the Invalides, on whom, however, it produces but a mixed indistinct impression. The old heads are none of the clearest, besides, it is said, Delaunay has been profuse of beverages, prodigue de boisson. They think, they will not fire, if not fired on, if they can help it, but must, on the whole, be ruled considerably by circumstances. Woe to thee, Delaunay, in such an hour, if thou canst not, taking some one firm decision, rule circumstances. Soft speeches will not serve, hard grapeshot is questionable, but hovering between the two is unquestionable. Ever wilder swells the tide of men, their infinite hum waxing ever louder, into imprecations, perhaps into crackleless stray musketry, which latter, on walls 9 feet thick, cannot do execution. The outer drawbridge has been lowered for Thuriot, new deputation of citizens, it is the third, and noisiest of all, penetrates that way into the outer court, soft speeches producing no clearance of these, Delaunay gives fire, pulls up his drawbridge. A slight sputter, which has kindled the too combustible chaos, made it a roaring fire chaos. Bursts forth insurrection, at sight of its own blood, for there were deaths by that sputter of fire, into endless rolling explosion of musketry, distraction, execration, and overhead, from the fortress, let one great gun, with its grapeshot, go booming, to show what we could do. The Bastille is besieged. On, then, all Frenchmen that have hearts in their bodies. Roar with all your throats, of cartilage and metal, ye sons of liberty, stir spasmodically whatsoever of utmost faculty is in you, soul, body or spirit, for it is the hour. Smite, thou Louis Tournay, Cartwright of the Marais, old soldier of the regiment Dauphine, smite at that outer drawbridge chain, though the fiery hail whistles round thee. Never, over knave or fellow, did thy axe strike such a stroke. Down with it, man, down with it to Orcus, let the whole accursed edifice sink thither, and tyranny be swallowed up forever. Mounted, some say on the roof of the guardroom, some on bayonets stuck into joints of the wall, Louis Tournay smites, brave Aubin Bonamir, also an old soldier, seconding him, the chain yields, breaks, the huge drawbridge slams down, thundering, avec fracas. Glorious, and yet, alas, it is still but the outworks. The 8 grim towers, with their Invalide musketry, their paving stones and cannon mouths, still soar aloft intact, ditch yawning impassable, stone-faced, the inner drawbridge with its back towards us, the Bastille is still to take. To describe this siege of the Bastille, thought to be one of the most important in history, perhaps transcends the talent of mortals. Could one but, after infinite reading, get to understand so much as the plan of the building. But there is open esplanade, at the end of the Rue Saint-Antoine, there are such forecourts, Cour Avancée, Cour de l'Orme, arched gateway, where Louis Tournay now fights, then new drawbridges, dormant bridges, rampart bastions, and the grim 8 towers, a labyrinthic mass, high frowning there, of all ages from 20 years to 420, beleaguered, in this its last hour, as we said, by mere chaos come again. Ordnance of all calibers, throats of all capacities, men of all plans, every man his own engineer, seldom since the war of pygmies and cranes was there seen so anomalous a thing. Half-pay Ellie is home for a suit of regimentals, no one would heed him in colored clothes, half-pay Hulin is haranguing Garde Française in the Place de Grève. Frantic patriots pick up the grapeshots, bear them, still hot, or seemingly so, to the Hôtel de Ville. Paris, you perceive, is to be burnt. Flessels is pale to the very lips, for the roar of the multitude grows deep. Paris wholly is got to the acme of its frenzy, whirled, all ways, by panic madness. At every street barricade, there whirls simmering, a minor whirlpool, strengthening the barricade, since God knows what is coming, and all minor whirlpools play distractedly into that grand fire maelstrom which is lashing round the Bastille. And so it lashes and it roars. Colette the wine merchant has become an impromptu cannoneer. Serge, of the Marine Service, fresh from Brest, ply the King of Siam's cannon. Singular, if we were not used to the like, Serge lay, last night, taking his ease at his inn, the King of Siam's cannon also lay, knowing nothing of him, for 100 years. Yet now, at the right instant, they have got together, and discourse eloquent music. For, hearing what was toward, Serge sprang from the Brest diligence, and ran. Garde Française also will be here, with real artillery, were not the walls so thick. Upwards from the esplanade, horizontally from all neighboring roofs and windows, flashes one irregular deluge of musketry, without effect. The Invalides lie flat, firing comparatively at their ease from behind stone, hardly through portholes, show the tip of a nose. We fall, shot, and make no impression. Let conflagration rage, of whatsoever is combustible. Guard rooms are burnt, Invalides mess rooms. A distracted peruke maker with 2 fiery torches is for burning the saltpeters of the arsenal. Had not a woman run screaming, had not a patriot, with some tincture of natural philosophy, instantly struck the wind out of him, but of musket on pit of stomach, overturned barrels, and stayed the devouring element. A young beautiful lady, seized escaping in these outer courts, and thought falsely to be Delaunay's daughter, shall be burned in Delaunay's sight. She lies swooned on a palace, but again a patriot, it is brave Aubin Bonamir the old soldier, dashes in, and rescues her. Straw is burnt, 3 cartloads of it, hauled thither, go up in white smoke, almost to the choking of patriotism itself, so that Ellie had, with singed brows, to drag back one cart, and reel the gigantic haberdasher another. Smoke as of Tophet, confusion as of Babel, noise as of the crack of doom. Blood flows, the element of new madness. The wounded are carried into houses of the Rue Cerisai, the dying leave their last mandate not to yield till the accursed stronghold fall. And yet, alas, how fall? The walls are so thick. Deputations, 3 in number, arrive from the Hôtel de Ville. Abbé Fouché, who is of one, can say, with what almost superhuman courage of benevolence. These wave their town flag in the arched gateway, and stand rolling their drum, but to no purpose. In such crack of doom, Delaunay cannot hear them, dare not believe them, they return, with justified rage, the few of lead still singing in their ears. What to do? The firemen are here, squirting with their fire pumps on the Invalides cannon, to wet the touch holes. They unfortunately cannot squirt so high, but produce only clouds of spray. Individuals of classical knowledge propose catapults. Santerre, the sonorous brewer of the suburb Saint-Antoine, advises rather that the place be fired, by a mixture of phosphorus and oil of turpentine spouted up through forcing pumps. O Spinola Santerre, hast thou the mixture ready? Every man his own engineer. And still the fire deluge abates not, even women are firing, and Turks, at least one woman, with her sweetheart, and one Turk. Garde Française have come, real cannon, real cannoneers. Usher Maillard is busy, half pay Ellie, half pay Helene rage in the midst of thousands. How the great Bastille clock ticks, inaudible, in its inner court there, at its ease, hour after hour, as if nothing special, for it or the world, were passing. It told 1 when the firing began, and is now pointing towards 5, and still the firing slakes not. Far down, in their vaults, the 7 prisoners hear muffled din as of earthquakes, their turnkeys answer vaguely. Woe to thee, Delaunay, with thy poor 100 Invalides. Broglie is distant, and his ears heavy, Besenval hears, but can send no help. One poor troop of hussars has crept, reconnoitering, cautiously along the quay as far as the Pont Neuf. We are come to join you, said the captain, for the crowd seems shoreless. A large-headed dwarfish individual, of smoke-bleared aspect, shambles forward, opening his blue lips, for there is sense in him, and croaks, alight then, and give up your arms. The hussar captain is too happy to be escorted to the barriers, and dismissed on parole. Who the squat individual was? Men answer, it is M. Murat, author of the excellent Pacific Avis au Peuple. Great truly, O thou remarkable dog leech, is this thy day of emergence and new birth, and yet this same day come 4 years. But let the curtains of the future hang. What shall Delaunay do? One thing only Delaunay could have done, what he said he would do. Fancy him sitting, from the first, with lighted taper, within arm's length of the powder magazine, motionless, like old Roman senator, or bronze lampholder, coldly apprising Thuriot, and all men, by a slight motion of his eye, what his resolution was. Harmless he sat there, while unharmed, but the king's fortress, meanwhile, could, might, would, or should, in nowise, be surrendered, save to the king's messenger, one old man's life worthless, so it be lost with honor. But think, ye brawling canaille, how will it be when a whole Bastille springs skyward? In such statuesque, taper-holding attitude, one fancies Delaunay might have left Thuriot, the red clerks of the Bezoche, Curé of St. Stephen and all the Tagrag and Bobtail of the world, to work their will. And yet, withal, he could not do it. Hast thou considered how each man's heart is so tremulously responsive to the hearts of all men? Hast thou noted how omnipotent is the very sound of many men? How their shriek of indignation palsies the strong soul, their howl of contumely withers with unfelt pangs? The Ritter Gluck confessed that the ground tone of the noblest passage, in one of his noblest operas, was the voice of the populace he had heard at Vienna, crying to their Kaiser, "Bread! Bread!" Great is the combined voice of men, the utterance of their instincts, which are truer than their thoughts. It is the greatest a man encounters, among the sounds and shadows, which make up this world of time. He who can resist that, has his footing somewhere beyond time. Delaunay could not do it. Distracted, he hovers between the two, hopes in the middle of despair, surrenders not his fortress, declares that he will blow it up, seizes torches to blow it up, and does not blow it. Unhappy old Delaunay, it is the death agony of thy Bastille and thee. Jail, jailoring, and jailer, all three, such as they may have been, must finish. For 4 hours now has the world bedlam roared, call it the world chimera, blowing fire. The poor Invalides have sunk under their battlements, or rise only with reversed muskets. They have made a white flag of napkins, go beating the chamade, or seeming to beat, for one can hear nothing. The very Swiss at the portcullis look weary of firing, disheartened in the fire deluge. A porthole at the drawbridge is opened, as by one that would speak. See Huissier Maillard, the shifty man. On his plank, swinging over the abyss of that stone ditch, plank resting on parapet, balanced by weight of patriots, he hovers perilous, such a dove towards such an ark. Deftly, thou shifty usher, one man already fell, and lies smashed, far down there, against the masonry. Usher Maillard falls not, deftly, unerring he walks, with outspread palm. The Swiss holds a paper through his porthole, the shifty usher snatches it, and returns. Terms of surrender, pardon, immunity to all. Are they accepted? Foi d'officier, on the word of an officer, answers half-pay Hulin, or half-pay Ellie, for men do not agree on it, they are. Sinks the drawbridge, Usher Maillard bolting it went down, rushes in the living deluge, the Bastille is fallen. Victoire. La Bastille est prise. Chapter 1.57. Not a revolt. Why dwell on what follows? Hulin's foi d'officier should have been kept, but could not. The Swiss stand drawn up, disguised in white canvas smocks, the Invalides without disguise, their arms all piled against the wall. The first rush of victors, in ecstasy that the death peril is past, leaps joyfully on their necks, but new victors rush, and e'er new, also in ecstasy not wholly of joy. As we said, it was a living deluge, plunging headlong, had not the Garde Française, in their cool military way, wheeled round with arms leveled, it would have plunged suicidally, by the 100 or the 1,000, into the Bastille ditch. And so it goes plunging through court and corridor, billowing uncontrollable, firing from windows, on itself, in hot frenzy of triumph, of grief and vengeance for its slain. The poor Invalide will fare ill. One Swiss, running off in his white smock, is driven back, with the death thrust. Let all prisoners be marched to the town hall, to be judged. Alas, already one poor Invalide has his right hand slashed off him, his maimed body dragged to the Place de Grève, and hang there. This same right hand, it is said, turned back Delaunay from the powder magazine, and saved Paris. Delaunay, discovered in grey frock with poppy-colored ribbon, is for killing himself with the sword of his cane. He shall to the Hôtel de Ville, Hulin Maillard and others escorting him, Ellie marching foremost with the capitulation paper on his sword's point. Through roarings and cursings, through hustlings, clutchings, and at last through strokes. Your escort is hustled aside, felled down, Hulin sinks exhausted on a heap of stones. Miserable Delaunay. He shall never enter the Hôtel de Ville, only his bloody hair queue, held up in a bloody hand, that shall enter, for a sign. The bleeding trunk lies on the steps there, the head is off through the streets, ghastly, aloft on a pike. Rigorous Delaunay has died, crying out, "O friends, kill me fast." Merciful Deleuze must die, though gratitude embraces him, in this fearful hour, and will die for him, it avails not. Brothers, your wrath is cruel. Your Place de Grève is become a throat of the tiger, full of mere fierce bellowings, and thirst of blood. One other officer is massacred, one other Invalide is hanged on the lamp iron, with difficulty, with generous perseverance, the Garde Française will save the rest. Provost Flessel, stricken long since with the paleness of death, must descend from his seat, to be judged at the Palais Royal, alas, to be shot dead, by an unknown hand, at the turning of the first street. O evening Sunday of July, how, at this hour, thy beams fall slant on reapers amid peaceful woody fields, on old women spinning in cottages, on ships far out in the silent main, on balls at the orangery of Versailles, where high rouge dames of the palace are even now dancing with double-jacketed hussar officers, and also on this roaring hell porch of a Hotel de Ville. Babel Tower, with the confusion of tongues, were not bedlamatted with the conflagration of thoughts, was no type of it. One forest of distracted steel bristles, endless, in front of an electoral committee, points itself, in horrid radii, against this and the other accused breast. It was the Titans warring with Olympus, and they scarcely crediting it, have conquered, prodigy of prodigies, delirious, as it could not but be. Denunciation, vengeance, blaze of triumph on a dark ground of terror, all outward, all inward things fallen into one general wreck of madness. Electoral committee? Had it 1,000 throats of brass, it would not suffice. Abbé Lefebvre, in the vaults down below, is black as Vulcan, distributing that 5,000 weight of powder, with what perils, these 48 hours. Last night, a patriot, in liquor, insisted on sitting to smoke on the edge of one of the powder barrels. There smoked he, independent of the world, till the abbé purchased his pipe for 3 francs, and pitched it far. Ellie, in the grand hall, electoral committee looking on, sits with drawn sword bent in 3 places, with battered helm, for he was of the Queen's regiment, cavalry, with torn regimentals, face singed and soiled, comparable, some think, to an antique warrior, judging the people, forming a list of Bastille heroes. O friends, stain not with blood the greenest laurels ever gained in this world, such is the burden of Ellie's song, could it but be listened to. Courage, Ellie! Courage, ye municipal electors! A declining sun, the need of victuals and of telling news, will bring assuagement, dispersion, all earthly things must end. Along the streets of Paris circulate 7 Bastille prisoners, borne shoulder high, 7 heads on pikes, the keys of the Bastille, and much else. See also the Garde Française, in their steadfast military way, marching home to their barracks, with the Invalides and Swiss kindly enclosed in hollow square. It is 1 year and 2 months since these same men stood unparticipating, with Brennus de Gust at the Palais de Justice, when fate overtook D'Espremenil, and now they have participated, and will participate. Not Garde Française henceforth, but Center Grenadiers of the National Guard, men of iron discipline and humor, not without a kind of thought in them. Likewise ashlar stones of the Bastille continue thundering through the dusk, its paper archives shall fly white. Old secrets come to view, and long-buried despair finds voice. Read this portion of an old letter, if for my consolation Monsignor would grant me for the sake of God and the most blessed Trinity, that I could have news of my dear wife, were it only her name on card to show that she is alive. It were the greatest consolation I could receive, and I should forever bless the greatness of Monsignor. Poor prisoner, who namest thyself Queret de Murray, and hast no other history, she is dead, that dear wife of thine, and thou art dead. 'Tis 50 years since thy breaking heart put this question, to be heard now first, and long heard, in the hearts of men. But so does the July twilight thicken, so must Paris, as sick children, and all distracted creatures do, brawl itself finally into a kind of sleep. Municipal electors, astonished to find their heads still uppermost, are home. Only Moreau de Saint Mary of tropical birth and heart, of coolest judgment, he, with 2 others, shall sit permanent at the town hall. Paris sleeps, gleams upward the illuminated city, patrols go clashing, without common watchword, there go rumors, alarms of war, to the extent of 15,000 men marching through the suburb Saint-Antoine, who never got it marched through. Of the day's distraction judged by this of the night, Moreau de Saint Mary, before rising from his seat, gave upwards of 3,000 orders. What a head, comparable to Friar Bacon's brass head. Within it lies all Paris. Prompt must the answer be, right or wrong, in Paris is no other authority extant. Seriously, a most cool clear head, for which also thou, O brave Saint Mary, in many capacities, from August Senator to merchant's clerk, book dealer, vice king, in many places, from Virginia to Sardinia, shalt, ever as a brave man, find employment. De Senville has decamped, under cloud of dusk, amid a great affluence of people, who did not harm him. He marches, with faint growing tread, down the left bank of the Seine, all night, towards infinite space. Resummoned shall Besenval himself be, for trial, for difficult acquittal. His king's troops, his royal Allemand, are gone hence forever. The Versailles ball and lemonade is done, the orangery is silent except for nightbirds. Over in the Salle des Menus, Vice President Lafayette, with unsnuffed lights, with some 100 of members, stretched on tables round him, sits erect, out-watching the bear. This day, a second solemn deputation went to His Majesty, a second, and then a third, with no effect. What will the end of these things be? In the court, all is mystery, not without whisperings of terror, though ye dream of lemonade and epaulets, ye foolish women. His Majesty, kept in happy ignorance, perhaps dreams of double barrels and the woods of Moudon. Late at night, the Duc de Liancourt, having official right of entrance, gains access to the royal apartments, unfolds, with earnest clearness, in his constitutional way, the job's news. Mais, said poor Louis, c'est une révolte. Why, that is a revolt! Sire, answered Liancourt. It is not a revolt, it is a revolution. Chapter 1.58. Conquering your king. On the morrow a fourth deputation to the chateau is on foot, of a more solemn not to say awful character, for, besides orgies in the orangery, it seems, the grain convoys are all stopped, nor has Mirabeau's thunder been silent. Such deputation is on the point of setting out, when lo, His Majesty himself, attended only by his two brothers, step in, quite in the paternal manner, announces that the troops, and all causes of offense, are gone, and henceforth there shall be nothing but trust, reconcilement, goodwill, whereof he permits and even requests, a national assembly to assure Paris in his name. Acclamation, as of men suddenly delivered from death, gives answer. The whole assembly spontaneously rises to escort His Majesty back, interlacing their arms to keep off the excessive pressure from him, for all Versailles is crowding and shouting. The chateau musicians, with a felicitous promptitude, strike up the Zine de sa famille, bosom of one's family. The queen appears at the balcony with her little boy and girl, kissing them several times, infinite vivats spread far and wide, and suddenly there has come, as it were, a new heaven on earth. 88 august senators, Bailly, Lafayette, and our repentant archbishop among them, take coach for Paris, with the great intelligence, benedictions without end on their heads. From the Place Louis XV, where they alight, all the way to the Hôtel de Ville, it is one sea of tricolor cockades, of clear national muskets, one tempest of huzzahings, hand clappings, aided by occasional rollings of drum music. Harangues of due fervor are delivered, especially by Lally Tollendal, pious son of the ill-fated murdered Lally, on whose head, in consequence, a civic crown, of oak or parsley, is forced, which he forcibly transfers to Bailly's. But surely, for one thing, the National Guard must have a general. Moreau de Saint Mary, he of the 3,000 orders, casts one of his significant glances on the bust of Lafayette, which has stood there ever since the American War of Liberty. Whereupon, by acclamation, Lafayette is nominated. Again, in room of the slain traitor or quasi-traitor Flessels, President Bailly shall be, Provost of the Merchants? No, Mayor of Paris. So be it. Maire de Paris. Mayor Bailly, General Lafayette, Vive Bailly, Vive Lafayette. The universal out-of-doors multitude rends the welkin and confirmation. And now, finally, let us to Notre Dame for a Te Deum. Towards Notre Dame Cathedral, in glad procession, these regenerators of the country walk, through a jubilant people, in fraternal manner, Abbé Lefebvre, still black with his gunpowder services, walking arm in arm with the white-stoled archbishop. Poor Bailly comes upon the foundling children, sent to kneel to him, and weeps. Te Deum, our archbishop officiating, is not only sung, but shot with blank cartridges. Our joy is boundless as our woe threatened to be. Paris, by her own pike and musket, and the valor of her own heart, has conquered the very war gods, to the satisfaction now of Majesty itself. A courier is, this night, getting under way for Necker, the people's minister, invited back by king, by National Assembly and nation, shall traverse France amid shoutings, and the sound of trumpet and timbrel. Seeing which course of things, messeigneurs of the court triumvirate, messieurs of the dead-born Broglie ministry, and others such, consider that their part also is clear, to mount and ride. Off, ye two loyal Broglies, Polignacs, and princes of the blood, off while it is yet time. Did not the Palais Royal in its late nocturnal violent motions, set a specific price, place of payment not mentioned, on each of your heads? With precautions, with the aid of pieces of cannon and regiments that can be depended on, messeigneurs, between the 16th night and the 17th morning, get to their several roads. Not without risk. Prince Condé has, or seems to have, men galloping at full speed, with a view, it is thought, to fling him into the river Oise, at Pont Saint-Mayence. The Polignacs travel disguised, friends, not servants, on their coach-box. Broglie has his own difficulties at Versailles, runs his own risks at Metz and Verdun, does nevertheless get safe to Luxembourg, and there rests. This is what they call the first emigration, determined on, as appears, in full court conclave, His Majesty assisting, prompt he, for his share of it, to follow any counsel whatsoever. 3 sons of France, and 4 princes of the blood of St. Louis, says Weber, could not more effectually humble the burghers of Paris than by appearing to withdraw in fear of their life. Alas, the burghers of Paris bear it with unexpected stoicism. The man d'Artois indeed is gone, but has he carried, for example, the land d'Artois with him? Not even Bagatelle the country house, which shall be useful as a tavern, hardly the 4 valet breeches, leaving the breeches maker. As for old Foulon, one learns that he is dead, at least a sumptuous funeral is going on, the undertakers honoring him, if no other will. Intendant Berthier, his son-in-law, is still living, lurking, he joined Besenval, on that Eumenides Sunday, appearing to treat it with levity, and is now fled no man knows whither. The emigration is not gone many miles, Prince Condé hardly across the Oise, when His Majesty, according to arrangement, for the emigration also thought it might do good, undertakes a rather daring enterprise, that of visiting Paris in person. With 100 members of Assembly, with small or no military escort, which indeed he dismissed at the bridge of Sèvres, poor Louis sets out, leaving a desolate palace, a queen weeping, the present, the past, and the future all so unfriendly for her. At the barrier of Passy, Mayor Bailly, in grand gala, presents him with the keys, harangues him, in academic style, mentions that it is a great day, that in Henri Quatre's case, the king had to make conquest of his people, but in this happier case, the people makes conquest of its king, a conquest son roi. The king, so happily conquered, drives forward, slowly, through a steel people, all silent, or shouting only Vive la Nation, is harangued at the town hall, by Moreau of the 3,000 orders, by King's Procureur M. Ethys de Corny, by Lally Tollendal, and others, knows not what to think of it, or say of it, learns that he is restorer of French liberty, as a statue of him, to be raised on the site of the Bastille, shall testify to all men. Finally, he is shown at the balcony, with a tricolour cockade in his hat, is greeted now, with vehement acclamation, from square and street, from all windows and roofs, and so drives home again amid glad mingled and, as it were, intermarried shouts, of Vive la Roi and Vive la Nation, wearied but safe. It was Sunday when the red-hot balls hung over us, in mid-air, it is now but Friday and the revolution is sanctioned. An August National Assembly shall make the Constitution, and neither foreign pander, domestic triumvirate, with levelled cannon, guy faux powder plots, for that too was spoken of, nor any tyrannic power on the earth, or under the earth, shall say to it, What dost thou? So jubilates the people, sure now of a constitution. Cracked Marquis Saint Huruge is heard under the windows of the chateau, murmuring sheer speculative treason. Chapter 1.59 The Lanterne. The fall of the Bastille may be said to have shaken all France to the deepest foundations of its existence. The rumor of these wonders flies everywhere, with the natural speed of rumor, with an effect thought to be preternatural, produced by plots. Did d'Orléans or Laclos, nay did Mirabeau, not overburdened with money at this time, send riding couriers out from Paris, to gallop on all radii, or highways, towards all points of France? It is a miracle, which no penetrating man will call in question. Already in most towns, electoral committees were met, to regret Necker, in harangue and resolution. In many a town, as Rennes, Caen, Lyons, an ebullient people was already regretting him in brickbats and musketry. But now, at every town's end in France, there do arrive, in these days of terror, men, as men will arrive, nay, men on horseback, since rumor often as travels riding. These men declare, with alarmed countenance, the brigands to be coming, to be just at hand, and do then ride on, about their further business, be what it might. Whereupon the whole population of such town, defensively flies to arms. Petition is soon thereafter forwarded to National Assembly. In such peril and terror of peril, leave to organize yourself cannot be withheld, the armed population becomes everywhere an enrolled National Guard. Thus rides rumor, careering along all radii, from Paris outwards, to such purpose, in few days, some say in not many hours, all France to the utmost borders bristles with bayonets. Singular, but undeniable, miraculous or not. But thus may any chemical liquid, though cooled to the freezing point, or far lower, still continue liquid, and then, on the slightest stroke or shake, it at once rushes wholly into ice. Thus has France, for long months and even years, been chemically dealt with, brought below zero, and now, shaken by the fall of a Bastille, it instantaneously congeals, into one crystallized mass, of sharp-cutting steel. Guayaquil la Taka, where who touches it? In Paris, an electoral committee, with a new mayor and general, is urgent with belligerent workmen to resume their handicrafts. Strong dames of the market, dames de la Halle, deliver congratulatory harangues, present bouquets to the shrine of Saint Genevieve. Unenrolled men deposit their arms, not so readily as could be wished, and receive 9 francs. With Te Deums, royal visits, and sanctioned revolution, there is halcyon weather, weather even of preternatural brightness, the hurricane being overblown. Nevertheless, as is natural, the waves still run high, hollow rocks retaining their murmur. We are but at the 22nd of the month, hardly above a week since the Bastille fell, when it suddenly appears that old Foulon is alive, nay, that he is here, in early morning, in the streets of Paris, the extortioner, the plotter, who would make the people eat grass, and was a liar from the beginning. It is even so. The deceptive sumptuous funeral, of some domestic that died, the hiding place at Vitry towards Fontainebleau, have not availed that wretched old man. Some living domestic or dependent, for none loves Foulon, has betrayed him to the village. Merciless boars of Vitry unearth him, pounce on him, like hellhounds, westward, old infamy, to Paris, to be judged at the Hôtel de Ville. His old head, which 74 years have bleached, is bare, they have tied an emblematic bundle of grass on his back, a garland of nettles and thistles is round his neck, in this manner, led with ropes, goaded on with curses and menaces, must he, with his old limbs, sprawl forward, the pitiablest, most unpitied of all old men. Cité Saint-Antoine, and every street, mustering its crowds as he passes, the Place de Grève, the hall of the Hôtel de Ville will scarcely hold his escort and him. Foulon must not only be judged righteously, but judged there where he stands, without any delay. Appoint 7 judges, ye municipals, or 70 and 7, name them yourselves, or we will name them, but judge him. Electoral rhetoric, eloquence of Mayor Bailly, is wasted explaining the beauty of the law's delay. Delay and still delay. Behold, O Mayor of the people, the morning has worn itself into noon, and he is still unjudged. Lafayette, pressingly sent for, arrives, gives voice, this Foulon, a known man, is guilty almost beyond doubt, but may he not have accomplices? Ought not the truth to be cunningly pumped out of him, in the Abbaye prison? It is a new light. Sansculottism claps hands, at which hand-clapping, Foulon, in his fainness, as his destiny would have it, also claps. See. They understand one another. Cries dark Sansculottism, blazing into fury of suspicion. Friends, said a person in good clothes, stepping forward, what is the use of judging this man? Has he not been judged these 30 years? With wild yells, Sansculottism clutches him, in its 100 hands, he is whirled across the Place de Grève, to the lanterne, lamp iron which there is at the corner of the Rue de la Vannerie, pleading bitterly for life, to the deaf winds. Only with the third rope, for 2 ropes broke, and the quavering voice still pleaded, can he be so much as got hanged. His body is dragged through the streets, his head goes aloft on a pike, the mouth filled with grass, amid sounds as of topet, from a grass-eating people. Surely if revenge is a kind of justice, it is a wild kind. O mad Sansculottism, hast thou risen, in thy mad darkness, in thy soot and rags, unexpectedly, like an Enceladus, living buried, from under his trinacria? They that would make grass be eaten do now eat grass, in this manner? After long dumb groaning generations, has the turn suddenly become thine? To such abysmal overturns, and frightful instantaneous inversions of the center of gravity, are human solecisms all liable, if they but knew it, the more liable, the falser and top-heavier, they are. To add to the horror of Mayor Bailly and his municipals, word comes that Berthier has also been arrested, that he is on his way hither from Compiègne. Berthier, intendant, say, tax levier, of Paris, sycophant and tyrant, forestaller of corn, contriver of camps against the people, accused of many things, is he not Foulon's son-in-law, and, in that one point, guilty of all? In these hours too, when Sansculottism has its blood up. The shuddering municipals send one of their number to escort him, with mounted National Guards. At the fall of day, the wretched Berthier, still wearing a face of courage, arrives at the barrier, in an open carriage, with the municipal beside him, 500 horsemen with drawn sabres, unarmed footmen enough, not without noise. Placards go brandished round him, bearing legibly his indictment, as Sansculottism, with unlegal brevity, in huge letters draws it up. Paris is come forth to meet him, with hand clappings, with windows flung up, with dances, triumph songs, as of the Furies. Lastly the head of Foulon, this also meets him on a pike. Well might his look become glazed, and sense fail him, at such sight. Nevertheless, be the man's conscience what it may, his nerves are of iron. At the Hôtel de Ville, he will answer nothing. He says, he obeyed superior order, they have his papers, they may judge and determine, as for himself, not having closed an eye these 2 nights, he demands, before all things, to have sleep. Let him sleep, thou miserable Berthier. Guards rise with him, in motion towards the Abbaye. At the very door of the Hôtel de Ville, they are clutched, flung asunder, as by a vortex of mad arms, Berthier whirls towards the lanterne. He snatches a musket, fells and strikes, defending himself like a mad lion, is borne down, trampled, hanged, mangled, his head too, and even his heart, flies over the city on a pike. Horrible, in lands that had known equal justice. Not so unnatural in lands that had never known it. Le sang qui coulait est il donc si pur? Asks Barnave, intimating that the gallows, though by irregular methods, has its own. Thou thyself, O reader, when thou turnest that corner of the Rue de la Vannerie, and discernest still that same grim bracket of old iron, wilt not want for reflections. Over a grocer's shop, or otherwise, with a bust of Louis XIV. In the niche under it, or now no longer in the niche, it still sticks there, still holding out an ineffectual light of fish oil, and has seen worlds wrecked, and says nothing. But to the eye of enlightened patriotism, what a thundercloud was this, suddenly shaping itself in the radiance of the halcyon weather. Cloud of Erebus blackness, betokening latent electricity without limit. Mayor Bailly, General Lafayette throw up their commissions, in an indignant manner, need to be flattered back again. The cloud disappears, as thunderclouds do. The halcyon weather returns, though of a grayer complexion, of a character more and more evidently not supernatural. Thus, in any case, with what rubs soever, shall the Bastille be abolished from our earth, and with it, feudalism, despotism, and, one hopes, scoundrelism generally, and all hard usage of man by his brother man. Alas, the scoundrelism and hard usage are not so easy of abolition. But as for the Bastille, it sinks day after day, and month after month, its ashlars and boulders tumbling down continually, by express order of our municipals. Crowds of the curious roam through its caverns, gaze on the skeletons found walled up, on the oubliettes, iron cages, monstrous stone blocks with padlock chains. One day we discern Mirabeau there, along with the Genovese Dumont. Workers and onlookers make reverent way for him, fling verses, flowers on his path, Bastille papers and curiosities into his carriage, with vivats. Able editors compile books from the Bastille archives, from what of them remain unburned. The key of that robber den shall cross the Atlantic, shall lie on Washington's hall table. The great clock ticks now in a private patriotic clockmaker's apartment, no longer measuring hours of mere heaviness. Vanished is the Bastille, what we call vanished, the body, or sandstones, of it hanging, in benign metamorphosis, for centuries to come, over the Seine waters, as Pont Louis sees, the soul of it living, perhaps still longer, in the memories of men. So far, ye august senators, with your tennis court oaths, your inertia and impetus, your sagacity and pertinacity, have ye brought us. And yet think, messieurs, as the petitioner justly urged, you who were our saviors, did yourselves need saviors, the brave Bastillers, namely, workmen of Paris, many of them in straitened pecuniary circumstances. Subscriptions are opened, lists are formed, more accurate than Ellie's, harangues are delivered. A body of Bastille heroes, tolerably complete, did get together, comparable to the Argonauts, hoping to endure like them. But in little more than a year, the whirlpool of things threw them asunder again, and they sank. So many highest superlatives achieved by man are followed by new higher, and dwindle into comparatives and positives. The siege of the Bastille, weighed with which, in the historical balance, most other sieges, including that of Troy town, are gossamer, cost, as we find, in killed and mortally wounded, on the part of the besiegers, some 83 persons, on the part of the besieged, after all that straw burning, fire pumping, and deluge of musketry, one poor solitary invalid, shot stone dead, roide mort, on the battlements. The Bastille fortress, like the city of Jericho, was overturned by miraculous sound.